Hello and welcome to Cargo Masterminds, our weekly Monday show where I interview air cargo leaders to find out how they and their organizations are doing business differently in a world that is still choking under the impact of the COVID pandemic, despite many vaccines being rolled out. My name is Reggie John. The COVID pandemic is a health and humanitarian crisis, and it is also an economic shock. Even 15 months after it was declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization, and 5 months after more than one effective COVID vaccines being rolled out, the world is yet to recover, and full recovery is not expected anytime soon. Aviation, the worst affected industry, continues to bleed as it expects people to start flying. With the passenger aviation net to return belly hold cargo capacity is only a portion of what it used to be in the pre-pandemic. Capacity constraints have risen to more freighter movements, increased cargo charters, and also a new category called freighters, or cargo-only passenger flights with options to load cargo in the passenger cabins, either on the seats or in the cabins of aircraft that have their seats removed, allowing more cargo capacity. The pandemic and how the air cargo industry responds with innovation and ingenuity have opened a variety of new challenges and opportunities for air cargo handlers around the world. They represent the front line of the air cargo industry. If critical supplies are reaching to you, then thanks to the cargo handlers at airports and at warehouses who are working round the clock to ensure smooth and efficient movement of cargo in and out of aircraft and airports. My guest today represents a global aviation logistic company that has cargo handling as its important business vertical. I'm so happy to welcome Robert Fordree, who is the Executive Vice President of Cargo at Menzies Aviation. Robert joined the air cargo industry at a very young age with the Lufthansa Cargo as quality manager in 1990. In his 3-decade-old career, he has not changed too many jobs and has only been with 3 companies, 19 years in airlines, Lufthansa Cargo and Etihad, and about 10 years in cargo handling at Menzies Aviation. In this conversation, I intend to find out what has changed in air cargo handling since the pandemic and how challenging is his role. Robert joins me from Edinburgh in Scotland from the headquarters of Menzies Aviation. Robert, welcome to Cargo Masterminds.
Thanks very much, Reggie. That was a great intro. Thank you. And when you talk about me being involved in air cargo for 30 years, it makes me feel very, very old. But you're right. I did join at an early age, so I like to think I'm not that old.
Yeah, but then you still look very young.
You're a very nice man. Thank you. I'll take that one.
Okay, Robert, give us an overview of the position of the cargo business in the overall portfolio of Menzies Aviation for the year 2020. I happen to also look at your financial numbers for 2020 released and out in the public domain. Tell us about the volume of cargo handled and the revenue generated. For 2020, cargo volume handled was down about 18%. And how does 2021 look like so far?
So 2020 was probably, like most organizations, one of our most challenging years. In fact, in Menzies' very long history, it was definitely our most difficult year. But at the same time, from a cargo perspective, we obviously benefited. We had a lot more cargo to handle and a lot less aircraft to handle. So Menzies' portfolio is ground handling and cargo handling, fueling, lounge activity, and a number of other aviation-related businesses. And cargo was a part of that, but a relatively small part. The principal focus for Menzies was ground handling. But we've certainly grown the cargo portfolio over the last couple of years, and certainly in 2020, we took advantage of that growth, and we were handling certainly a lot more cargo. You've mentioned the freighters. I call them passenger freighters. We certainly saw a lot more cargo in that sense across all of our global locations. And we're now at a stage where we're handling something in the region of about 1.6 million tons of cargo a year across our global network. If we go back 2 years ago, that number was about 1.2 million. So we've definitely grown. We've definitely seen an increase in volumes in 2021. That's partly due to the fact that we've been successful in some of our commercial activities. So we've welcomed some new customers We've opened a lot of new facilities, and that's helped with the increase. But 2021 is shaping up to be better than 2020. We are all hoping that we can get to a place where we are somewhere close to 2019 schedules and volumes across the whole business. And our expectation is that 2022 will hopefully take us there. But we're right now on a good path, and 21 is certainly shaping up to be better than last year.
Robert, going by all estimates, the air cargo demand is expected to be extremely positive in the short to midterm. And how do you plan to expand your cargo services and the number of key airline partnerships in key markets where returns are more sustainable? You had a partnership signed last year with Qatar Airways. You had facilities opened in Budapest in early 2020 or late 2019. Then you had the London Heathrow facility. What are some of those opportunities that you would want to really have the expansion in full swing?
Yeah, you've mentioned a couple of the sort of business development projects that have recently materialized, and I would say we are now operating at 54 cargo locations around the world. If we go back 2 years, we were at 36. So our business development activity is working. Our growth strategy is working. The stations you mentioned are now very successful, but we've also now opened in Miami with Avianca. That started a few weeks ago. We've opened operations now in Pakistan at a number of different airports with our partners RAS. We have opened in Baghdad in Iraq. I delegated the responsibility to go and do the audit in Iraq to one of my colleagues, but we're operating there very, very successfully now as well. In Jakarta and other places in Indonesia we're operating. So the growth plan that we put into place is working very well, and we see that continuing. Certainly the relationships that we've struck with our airline customers, we're seeing a lot more opportunities where there are multi-station contracts in place. And obviously as our network grows, it's much easier to do multi-station contracts. We don't necessarily intend to look at what I would term the sort of saturated, mature cargo markets. There's a lot of handlers with some good capability in those really sort of key cargo markets. We're focusing on some of the other airports, the other airport opportunities that are springing up now that cargo is on people's agenda over the last year or two. But having said that, if our global customers want us to look at some of the more traditional cargo gateways, we're very happy to do that as well. And in fact, we are looking at one or two of those, particularly in the US at the moment.
Robert, can you tell me which are those markets where the market is not saturated and where you find the potential to grow is much more?
So our focus has been on talking to our customers and finding out where they want us to be. And certainly some of the markets that we are looking at in a lot of detail are North and South America. So Miami was the start of us opening some new locations in the US. We already have quite a lot of coverage in Canada. But in the US, we're certainly looking at 2 or 3 business development projects at the moment. And in South America, we have an operation in Bogota. We have a very small operation in San Juan, but we're quite limited at the moment. And certainly in that particular region, we're looking at growth potential. And a lot of our plan is not necessarily to arrive at an airport and say we are Menzies and put a flag down and say come and be handled by us. Our philosophy is much more to work with local partners who have a good understanding of the local market, but would benefit from a global handler supporting them in engagement with global customers. So North and South America, Reggie, is our immediate focus right now.
Robert, give us a little more detail about your key priorities in relation to growth, network expansion, and investment in people, investment in technology and infrastructure.
It's a good question. In my airline days, being responsible for a global network, I often used to say to handlers, how are you going to give me a standardized approach to handling across the world? I want the same handling no matter what location it is. And that's something that we defined as part of our cargo strategy or our new cargo strategy that we put together in 2018. So we have very much a standardized approach. We want to give the same service like a Starbucks or a McDonald's all around the world for Menzies cargo handling. And in doing that, it means that we must have the same training principles in every location, the same processes, procedures, operating system, the same management philosophy. Often we find in cargo locations, the cargo location is as good as the management team that is in position. And some of them have different ideas as to how the business should be run. And we don't want to take away any of that entrepreneurial spirit, which is really important for really successful cargo handling. But what we do want to do is to give support and guidance because we're engaging at a headquarters level with our global customers. So we've got a very good understanding of what they need. And that's what we put into our network operations. And in terms of growth, we talk about Menzifying a station, let's say, when we look at acquisitions or joint ventures. And that's not to say that we are arrogant and say that we can do it better than others. But we know that the model that we have is working and working very well. And certainly the partners that we're engaging with are very open and welcoming to our policies and procedures. So that's something that we do. We look to try to Menzify an operation so that we don't then have diverse handling across the network. We've got very standardized handling. That's our approach.
How successful have you been in the Menzifying or Starbucksization of your processes, standardization, 80%, 90%, or 100%?
I think it would be wrong for anybody to say that they're at 100%. But to pick a number, we're probably at 80 or 90%. For example, in Miami, where we started working with Avianca a few weeks ago, all of the 300 plus employees that we have in the warehouse operation there are in Menzies uniform. And they're fully aware of the safety protocols that we have. They're fully aware of the security requirements that we've got. So, I could safely say that Miami is now on the Menzies map. It's one of Menzies locations. It's Avianca's building. It's Avianca's operation, but it's Menzies personnel. And it's very clear to anybody now that that's Menzies in position. So I would say we are successful in that sense. There's always things that we can improve upon. But that's something that's very important to us. So it's something that I think we do very well.
But how challenging would it become, especially when you are actually partnering with the local companies as part of your network expansion, because you are not going to open your own network there, you actually strike partnership. So when you work in partnership, how challenging is that going to be?
It's challenging if you don't have the right partner. And I think Pakistan would be a perfect example of that with our colleagues at RAS. They were very welcoming to Menzies, very welcoming to our suggestions, recommendations, ideas on how we can help the business develop. But we were also very respectful of a successful business that was put into place by some very capable people, a business that had grown, and some people that clearly know the market very, very well in Pakistan, and understand the requirements, the regulatory expectations, and they understand the market. And that's where we look for partners that we can work with. We're very respectful to those people. And in most cases, and certainly when we enter into a partnership, they're very open and supportive to Menzies' approach as well, which is why we would enter into the partnership in the first place. So we're careful about where we go. We're careful about the partners that we choose. and the marriages are often very long and very successful.
Coming back to your partnership with Qatar Airways Cargo last year for London Heathrow, as part of the agreement, there was also a plan to invest in a special product handling capabilities with a key focus on pharmaceutical and temperature controlled commodities. What is the status of this plan?
So the answer, Reggie, is yes. We're up and running with our pharmaceutical handling capabilities in London. Anyone that has seen our Heathrow facility and is familiar with the cargo area at Heathrow will certainly have seen the branding that is in place for Qatar Airways and the capabilities for their pharmaceutical product. We've put a lot of infrastructure in place. A lot of new temperature control rooms are in position, and we're certainly seeing an upturn in the pharmaceutical handling products that are operating through the terminal. And we've also commenced our CEIV certification process. We had the first audit this week, and we expect to have that certification within the next couple of months. So we're certainly ready, and we've certainly delivered on what we said we would do.
By when do you expect to open it, and is it only for the Qatar Airways cargo, or will it be open for other airlines as well?
So it's open now. We certainly have the capability to handle the pharmaceutical. The only thing that is missing is the confirmed CEIV certification, and it is for all of our customers at Heathrow as well. So yes, we've got an excellent relationship with Qatar Airways, and we've managed to invest to support their products as well. But that investment also supports all of our customers at Heathrow.
Can you tell me what is the amount of cargo that will be handled on an annual capacity that it has, and what are the temperature range rooms available there?
So the temperature ranges cover everything from just under freezing up to 25 degrees. We have a number of rooms that are dual climate, so that we can move the temperature up and down as required. And then we have some rooms that are dedicated for the 2 to 8 range. And then the 15 to 25 range as well. So there are a number of options available. It's quite an extensive amount of rooms that we've got spread across the facility. The tonnage information, it's limited at the moment in terms of our tonnage that we're handling through London. I think it's something that all of our airline customers need to build up their service offerings for. But we certainly have the infrastructure ready for when they are able to secure the business from those shippers.
Okay, in February this year, you strengthened your cargo team with 5 new appointments of experienced professionals. Tell us about the importance of that decision and the creation of a new role, Vice President Cargo Technology, and getting Rory Fiedler into that position, Rory from Etihad Cargo.
Yeah. So it was very important for us to be able to build a team of cargo professionals. We defined again our cargo strategy in 2018. I was in position in Edinburgh in our headquarters, working with our cargo management team across the network. And when we talk about having a standardized approach, it's something that's very difficult to do when you are focused in one particular location and then dealing with a number of cargo managers who have an operation to run and customers to keep happy. So we started increasing our cargo capability with some key individuals. What we now have is a structure that has a vice president of cargo in each of our regions. So in the Americas, in Australia, in Europe, and in Africa, Middle East, and India. And those individuals work very closely with me in defining the strategy, keeping our customers happy, looking at the business development activity. So we have that cargo executive team in place now, which is driving our growth. And we certainly felt that from a technology perspective, we needed to invest further in technology for cargo. I think most people that are familiar with cargo handling will realize that you can walk into a warehouse in any part of the world, and it will look and feel like a warehouse that was handling cargo in maybe 1980, and in some cases maybe 1970, and sometimes earlier than that. But what we are doing is putting into place a strategy around our technology solutions as well. So you mentioned Rory. Rory and I worked very closely together in Abu Dhabi with Etihad. I was delighted to be able to bring Rory into our management team. And his focus is on technology development. It's not necessarily on ensuring that we've got the right messaging in place today for existing customers. It's about what can we do in the future. And one of the thoughts that we had, so one of the considerations that we had, is that we need to attract a new generation of people to come and join cargo. And that new generation is very familiar with technology in their personal life. Everything is done on iPads or phones or tablets, everything with an app, everything is technology driven. And if they come and look to work in an operation that we have that doesn't embrace that technology, they're not going to know how to work or what to do. So we are looking at how we can find the right people that can come and join our organization, but we need to give them the right tools to do the job. So there's a number of projects that Rory's working on. We're looking at automation in our operations. We're looking at driverless vehicles. We're looking at the paperless environment. We're looking at deliveries and collections being made from our facilities without human intervention. So there's a number of projects that Rory's looking at. We've effectively told him to think about anything that could work, that technology would support in our warehouses. Don't be shy in coming forward with any recommendations.
So do we expect to see a cargo warehouse in the next few years, which will completely different from what it used to be in 1980s and 90s, where you have complete automation and robotics working around?
I would like to say yes, and I wish I could say yes, Reggie. I think we need to be realistic, and we need to understand a little bit more about the cargo handling activity. If we have a customer that is operating with an e-commerce product or just a pharmaceutical product, then the likelihood of having significant automation in that warehouse operation is great, and the likelihood is that will happen. The reality that we face as a handler, I've often referred to our handling facilities being like a jigsaw puzzle, and all of our customers are the jigsaw pieces, and we have to put them together. And when we consider that, the cargo that we handle for those multiple customers is different. We could have an operator with freighters that carry aircraft engines and livestock and lots of different products. And we could also handle a customer that has a narrow body flight operation that is only a bulk load or small containers. And we need to be able to offer a handling solution for all of those different product types. So if we move towards something that is very automated for certain products, it means that we can't handle properly the rest of the cargo that our customers would expect us to handle. So I expect us to have a hybrid of automation, of technology that supports and improves our productivity. But I certainly don't believe that we will be moving away anytime soon from trained, experienced, capable, knowledgeable cargo professionals that are able to do what is required for our customers in our facilities.
Robert, one of the biggest challenges of the pandemic for the cargo handling companies at airports is a sudden surge of freighters, and other aircraft, leading to congestion at airports, delays in cargo evacuation, and long queues at the export import gates, something that you yourself found yourself in London last year. How well prepared are you? Are things improved significantly now?
So for London, Reggie, things have improved significantly. Yes, we are a much more stable operation, and I'd urge you to speak to our airline customers and ask them if we're giving good service. I very much hope and expect that they will say yes. But certainly the rise in passenger freighters, the increase in cargo volumes as a result of passenger aircraft flying for cargo reasons only, and therefore no passengers, no baggage, and an increase in cargo payload. It's been a double-edged sword for us. We are obviously delighted with the increase in cargo volumes, and that will be very welcome. But what we've been having to do is to find creative ways to handle that additional cargo volume without an understanding of if it will continue, when it will stop, if it will change. So our teams have been enormously flexible in their approach and in offering their support to be able to handle those volumes. And we're still seeing an upturn in cargo. There is an expectation as we go into the summer of this year that passenger flights will start operating in a little bit more frequency again, and that therefore the cargo payload on some of those flights will start to reduce a little. It's my personal belief that a number of airlines have woken up to the benefits of cargo, and where they may not have been focused on cargo previously, they certainly will be in the future. So we expect that upturn to continue. But it has been the most challenging part of this year. It's managing those schedules that change frequently. We often get calls from airlines to say, great news, I have a freighter charter operating tomorrow that's bringing a full inbound load. And that's great news, and we want that to continue. The people that plan our labor and do our rosters have a bit of a heart attack on how they're going to manage that. But that's something that we're happy to continue to focus on. And then, of course, there is a surge in terms of cargo volumes that gives us peaks in our operation. As you mentioned, that gives us, everybody wants their cargo to collect it at the same time when it arrives. So it obviously gives us challenges in some markets with the collection and delivery process. So we have redesigned our processes for deliveries and collections in Heathrow. In Los Angeles, we've done the very same. We've been confronted with a lot of cargo operating into Los Angeles for other US ports as well. So Los Angeles is being used as a bit of a gateway into the US by a number of customers. And we've just started a project with Nalian and Hermes, who are our operating system provider, to put into place a more automated booking slot system in Los Angeles. It's something that's being trialed at the moment. And yes, we have to work with the market to develop those and embrace those changes. But that's the kind of things that we're looking at as well. It's where can we support the market better, and how can we introduce technology and different ways of working to support everybody.
Robert, as part of modernizing the air cargo industry and the process, a lot of the industry association, including IATA, setting up standards, global standards. You have the IATA SAFE certifications for pharmaceutical, perishables, live animals. And there are also other processes which are standardization of operational processes, basically to reduce the complexity and duplication of audits for cargo handling facilities. What is Menzies' position on this, and how well involved are you in some of those industry initiatives?
So Reggie, I think you mentioned at the start, I started my career as a Lufthansa cargo employee. I'm very grateful to Lufthansa for the training and the experience that they gave me. Lufthansa is an organization that is very focused on processes and procedures and the standardization approach as well. And as I mentioned, that's something that we fully embrace within Menzies. From a personal perspective, I also fully embrace that as well. The most important thing is that we have clearly defined procedures and processes in all of our terminals, and people know what is expected of them. And I think IATA have supported that very well. I would say that because I'm part of IATA's Cargo Handling Consultative Council. So we do meet regularly. We help to define the processes and the procedures. We help to define what pharmaceutical handling may look like and other projects. And Menzies was the first cargo handler to embrace the IATA cargo handling manual across our network as our handling manual of choice as well. So that's something that we put into place. It certainly helps with the standardized approach that we've got. So I'm very supportive of the activity that IATA is doing. I wish I could say that audits have reduced as a result of that standardization process. I'm afraid to say that hasn't happened as yet, but we have certainly seen the benefits of a body like IATA that is defining standards, because it's much easier for us to then implement them because the carriers buy into them as well.
Robert, what are some of the key trends you notice in the cargo handling business? And I would like you to reflect on the trends that you find between the two stints that you had at Menzies Aviation.
The two stints that I had at Menzies Aviation, okay, so they were 10 years apart. So I was a younger man, less experienced, less knowledgeable, I guess, in world cargo, having spent some time with Etihad, which was an amazing experience in Abu Dhabi. I certainly feel as though I'm a little bit more well-rounded and understanding of global cargo expectations. What are the differences between the two stints? I think I would say the first time round for me was let's say 20 years ago it started. I think there were a lot more cargo figureheads around the world. There were a lot more people that were big characters, and people listen to those big characters a lot. I think there are not so many of those characters around any longer, but I think airlines have become much more focused on cargo, much clearer in their expectations, much clearer in their procurement activity. And actually from a Menzies perspective, that's helped us because we are focused as well on those global cargo relationships, and it is about people. Undoubtedly it's about people. Some of the relationships that I have with airline customers have been built up over a long period of time, not necessarily over Zoom calls or anything else, but face-to-face meetings, dinners and lunches, and getting to know people. So that enormously helps, but at the same time you need to be able to deliver on your service. So I think the key difference between the two stints is we're perhaps a little bit more formal in our approach, a little bit more professional in our approach. I don't want to say we've lost the entrepreneurial spirit and we've lost the characters, but I think the business going back a long time was run by a few key people, and that's quite different now. Key trends. We often talk about e-commerce. We often talk about pharmaceutical handling. We spoke about transporting COVID vaccines a few months ago. So there's different trends that are happening across cargo handling. But for me, the biggest trend is the aviation community, and I think the global population, if you like, waking up to the fact that air cargo is carried on passenger aircraft around the world every day. And that's the biggest way that we transport cargo around the world. And I think people realize that now because we had impact on trade around the world with those passenger aircraft not operating, and therefore the cargo uplift being limited. So I think there's much more of an understanding about what we do around the world. My son understands it a little bit better than he did before, but it's much easier when I can say to him that I'm supporting the fight against COVID-19 by transporting PPE and COVID vaccines around the world. That's an easy sell for him to understand. So I think for me that's probably the biggest trend that's coming out of the last 12 months. It's a much better understanding of what we do, how we do it, and why we're essential to global trade.
Okay, Robert, my last question, and I will take you back to what you said about how do we create opportunities or how do we attract young talent to an industry that is beginning to use modern tools of technology and innovation. You joined probably in your early 20s in your job in air cargo industry. How do we manage to get more Roberts joining air cargo industry at that young age?
I would say that's the $1 million question. It's probably the value of that is a lot higher. And you're very kind, Reggie. But I actually joined when I was younger than 20. I was in my teens when I joined. So I had a very good introduction to our air cargo, again, as I mentioned, through the training programs of Lufthansa Cargo. I joined as a trainee. And that was enormously beneficial. I think as a business and as an organization, we have not trained people in the way that we really should have been training people. A lot of supervisors move into supervisory roles because they are good at manifesting flights or moving cargo in a warehouse. A lot of duty managers, a lot of operations managers were good as supervisors, and that's why we moved them into the roles. So I think from a leadership perspective, we need to be much better at supporting and coaching and training our leaders of the future. And you're absolutely right. The reason that we brought in somebody that's responsible for technology is to attract those graduates to come into global logistics. It's not cargo handling. What we do is global logistics. And for them to come in and see some of the operations and see some of the practices that we're still working with, I would imagine that they would look to a different industry and to get something out of that. So technology plays a huge part in being able to attract the right talent. And we would like to get to a position where we have got a hybrid of talent that is coming into the business at a managerial level, that are either graduates or people that have got global trade or global logistics capabilities, but also attracting those trainees that are interested and motivated by aviation and want to come and join us, and may not have had the ability to have a further education that will help them in leadership roles. And that's something that I'm quite passionate about, that we can support our people that want a career in aviation, that want a career in cargo handling, and we need to be able to support them much better, and we need to be able to equip them with the tools to be leaders of the future. So we have some programs in place with Menzies where we're doing that. We're doing that in 2 or 3 key locations. We have some fantastic young employees, and we are certainly nurturing them and coaching them for the future.
Robert, since you said that you joined even before you were 20, I'm actually tempted to ask one more question, and it has to be from a personal note. How much of your influences come from your dad, who was with the Lufthansa Cargo?
So my dad will be delighted that you asked that question when he watches this. So I have to say it was quite a significant influence, Reggie, from a personal perspective. When I left school, I wasn't really clear about what I wanted to do. And my father had worked in aviation for a long time, in cargo for a long time. So I followed in his footsteps. It was somewhat challenging to start with. My name is quite distinctive. So I was always John's son. And that changed for him when he started meeting people who said, "Do you know Robert?" I don't think anybody said, "Is he your brother?" But it wasn't far short of that. So yes, I was very heavily influenced by my father. I would hope that we can attract people into the business, not just following their father's footsteps in future.
And you're influencing your son right now.
I am, but he wants to be a journalist, so that's okay. I'm happy with that.
So he could be a journalist in the transportation and logistics space.
I will send him your way, Reggie.
Robert, thank you so much for talking to us and sharing your reflections on the air freight industry with specific focus on cargo handling. It was a pleasure talking to you, and appreciate you joining us.
Thanks very much, Reggie. Great to talk to you.
That was Robert Fordree, Executive Vice President of Cargo at Menzies Aviation. I hope you found this video useful. If you found it useful, please give us a like and share it among your friends and colleagues. Also, if you are not a subscriber of our YouTube channel, please do subscribe now and click the bell icon so that you do not miss any of our new videos. I will see you next week with another episode featuring a new guest. Until next Monday, follow COVID rules strictly, wear your mask, get yourself vaccinated, and make sure to have some fun. Thank you.